Hey there, so welcome back to another video. So today is the second last video of my Pride Month series. I know, it's very sad, calm down everyone. So today we're doing the transgender flag, and then in voiceover I'll be telling you some things about the transgender community. I'll tell you what it means to be transgender. I'll tell you about some misconceptions people have about people who are transgender, and then we'll also talk about some history. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the support, all the love, and all that jazz on my previous few videos. I really appreciate it. I feel like I always say it, but it's so cool to be able to educate people. There's not really a lot of, random people that I haven't met that watch my YouTube videos. So it's really cool to be able to educate people that I do know as well. You know what I mean? So lots of my friends, for instance, message me and then they say like, wow, I really didn't know that. That's really cool. Thank you so much for showing us or sharing. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so Sunday's video is going to be the genderqueer flag. So that will be a little bit of a longer video because in all my other videos, I say something along the lines of, that's got to do with gender norms and society. And so what I'll do in my genderqueer video is I'll actually talk about those gender norms and things like that. So that one might be a little bit longer, I'm not 100% sure yet because obviously I haven't filmed it. Yeah, I hope you guys are ready for that. And then after that video, it'll be done. There won't be any more Pride videos. For now, at least. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do in October, but okay, so with that being said, let's get on into the video. Okay, so let's start with what it means to be transgender. So transgender people have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex that they were assigned at birth. Some transgender people who desire medical assistance to transition from one sex to another identify as transsexual. Only some, not everyone. So if we look at history, we will find people who defy gender boundaries. Whatever culture, country, or era you choose to research, you will find a history of individuals who, if they live now, we might refer to them as transgender. So what I mean by that is the drive that makes people risk so much to represent a gender they feel is theirs. And yet it is very different to social, cultural, and legal expectations of their birth sex. So first things first, we have to be careful with our words because lots of people are still a little bit outdated on the terminology. For instance, transvestite or tranny are not necessarily the correct words. They are quite derogatory nowadays. So words like transvestite and tranny are not at all socially acceptable anymore. But let's start with some history. So the word transvestite originated in 1910 from a German sexologist who would later develop the Berlin Institute, where the very first sex change operation took place. Transsexual was not coined until 1949 and transgender not until I think the 80s. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the first use of androgyny was recorded in 1552, but it has only been in the last 10 years that people have claimed it for themselves to describe a state of being in between or having both genders. So in 1885, the Criminal Law Act was passed in the UK, which made all homosexual behavior illegal. Similar laws were put in place throughout Europe during this period, and when homosexuality was made illegal, those suspected of it could face imprisonment or hard labor for up to 2 years. People who cross-dressed became easy targets of the law because they were associated in the public mind with homosexual subculture. One of the public trials of cross-dressing behavior was that of Ernest or Stella Bolton and Fred or Fanny Park, which you may remember I discussed them a little bit in my History of Drag video. They were arrested in 1870 for incident behavior. The authorities based the prosecution on their transvestitism and their soliciting of men as women, rather than an act of sodomy. No conviction could be obtained on these grounds, and they were acquitted of the charge of conspiracy to commit a felony by cross-dressing. As a result of these laws, people who were trans sought out doctors who could cure them, and a whole new field of medicine developed: sexology. The first sexologist who took a special interest in the sex impulses of trans individuals was probably Kraft Ebing, a professor of psychiatry in Vienna. His book was called Psychopathia Sexualis, and it was published in 1877 and stopped being published when he died. Krafft-Ebing constantly endeavored to give clearer clarification to the behaviors and individual histories of his patients. Through the work of the early sexologists such as Krafft-Ebing, transsexuality became a recognized phenomenon available for study, discussion, and treatment. Throughout the 20s and the 30s, medical provision was very sparse, but still transsexual people managed to find doctors who would help them. At Hirschfeld's infamous clinic, the first sex change operations were performed by Felix Abraham, a mastectomy on a trans man in 1926, a penectomy on his domestic servant Dora in 1930, a vaginaloplasty on Lily Ebe, a Danish painter, in 1931. The surgery was not easy, and Lily died less than 2 years after. In the UK, Michael Dillon managed to obtain gender reassignment treatment during the war. In the late 1940s, he even had a penis constructed by a plastic surgeon, Sir Harold Giles. Michael Dillon trained and worked as a ship's doctor until he was outed by the Sunday Express in 1958. He withdrew to India, where he became a Buddhist monk and a writer until his death in 1962. Let's talk about the more modern side of transgender and transsexuality. So 8 years before Dillon was outed, Christine Jorgensen, a former American GI, returned from Denmark when she had undergone the first of several operations as part of her gender reassignment. Overnight, she became a new sensation and was undoubtedly the most famous transsexual figure in the 20th century. She was beautiful, blonde, and everybody's idea of an all-American girl. As one obituary puts it, her very public life after her 1952 transition and surgery was a model for other transsexuals for decades. She was a tireless lecturer on the subject of transsexuality, pleading for understanding from a public that all too often wanted to see transsexuals as freaks or pervert. Miss Jorgensen's poise, charm, and wit won over the hearts of millions. Almost immediately, Jorgensen's psychologist in Denmark, Dr. Hamburger, started receiving letters, and in 1953 he published a paper, The Desire for Change of Sex as Shown by Personal Letters from 465 Men and Women. Suddenly, medical professionals realized that these were not exceptional cases. There was a whole bunch of people who were unhappy because their gender role did not match their body. The endocrinologist Harry Benjamin, who trained at the Hirschfeld's clinic, set up a clinical practice, first in New York and later in San Francisco. He trained a new generation of psychiatrists and psychotherapists in the treatment of transsexual people. The former head of research at the UK Gender Identity Clinic at the Charing Cross Hospital, Professor Richard Green, trained with Benjamin. When Benjamin published the first major textbook of the subject, The Transsexual Phenomenon, in 1966, gender reassignment was still the subject of an extensive social stigma, both publicly and in the medical world. Over 40 years later, some of that stigma remains, but it is widely acceptable that the only successful treatment for transsexual people is hormone therapy and surgical reassignment. A 1999 appeal court decision in the UK has confirmed this view, and it is an area of medicine that is gradually gaining respectability. So now we're not going to talk about misconceptions per se, but we're going to talk about some of the facts. So basically, it might be misconceptions, but it's basically just like facts that people might not know about gender as a whole or transgender people in particular. If you didn't know, transgender is an umbrella term that encompasses many identities. So the transgender community is large, varied, and includes people who have a diverse set of relationships with their gender. There's a transgender movement to get people to really understand that the spectrum exists. It always has been there. The word transgender as an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and expression did not necessarily match the gender they were assigned at birth. In contrast, to be cisgender means that a person's gender identity does align with the gender they were assigned at birth. Being cisgender awards certain privileges. Cisgender privilege is the recognition that you have the ability to move through the world or through a community in daily interactions without having to be interrupted by an obstacle that suggests your gender is not right. So the next thing is that sex and gender are different. The difference between gender and sex is frequently misunderstood, as a lot of people have no clue that these things are not the same. A person's sex refers to their anatomy and biological characteristics, including reproductive organs, hormones, and chromosomes. These traits distinguish them as male-sexed, female-sexed, or intersex. Gender, on the other hand, refers to traditional societal roles, behaviors, and activities that men and women are expected to perform. Some transgender people may choose to pursue sex reassignment surgery or hormone therapy, but transition is multi-layered. Transition can include social transitioning, legal transitioning, and medical transitioning. Medical transitioning is a highly individual choice, and it is often offensive to ask someone if they have done so. It's really invasive, and why does it matter to you what someone else has chosen to do with their body? So if somebody does come out to you as transgender, don't ask them if they've started medically transitioning. Oftentimes, it's probably got nothing to do with you, so just don't do it. Okay. So just so you know, sexuality and gender are different. A person's gender does not determine their sexuality, and just because someone transitions their gender does not mean that their attractions necessarily change gender. It's a deeply felt thing about who you are and how you identify. That's a separate issue from who you want to be romantically involved with and who you are sexually attracted to. Sexual orientation is a sense of who you are attracted to, and gender identity is a question of who do I think I am, and those are just not the same things. There are more than just two genders. The list of gender identities is vast and diverse, and cultures throughout history have commonly recognized genders other than male and female. When most people think about gender, they think of a binary that includes only male and female genders, but other people identify outside of those two genders, or a mix between the two. Some people think of gender as a spectrum between male and female, and there's no room between. And some people feel like a spectrum is not a good metaphor for their identities. They may identify as gender fluid or gender queer. Now the next thing, often when people speak about transgender people, they speak of their past and they say like, oh, this person was born a man or born a woman, and that is not necessarily correct. So doctors typically assign babies a gender at birth, based on their anatomy and biological characteristics, but people may realize that their gender differs from their assigned label. Transgender people describe their experience in many different ways, and some prefer to use the term assigned at birth to describe the gender society placed on them. The most important way to honor a person's gender identity is to respect the description of it. They have always known who they are, and they are their best spokesperson of their own experience. So at the end of the day, all this basically says is respect people, and this goes hand in hand with my non-binary video as well. Respect people and don't assume someone's gender. If you're unsure, ask them. There's nothing wrong with asking. 9 times out of 10, people will respect you more because you're taking the time and effort to respect them as well. So yeah, that is this voiceover finished. I guess we're done with the makeup look. Okay. So, as you can see, my makeup is done, and wow, shame, I was really struggling at that one point. I don't know if I'll leave it out, I don't know if I'll put it in. If I leave it out, that means this part's not going in, but if I leave it in, then this part's staying in. Anyways, I was really struggling on this art to like get the liner proper, but I did it, so period. I'm really so happy with how this turned out. I think it's so pretty, and I think it represents the flag really nicely. Well, at least I think so. I hope everyone else thinks so. Again, it's not like, hold on. Yeah, it's not like super symmetrical, which again is an irritation, but it's fine. I hope this video was entertaining. I hope it was informative. Hopefully you learned something new from this video. Hopefully, you know, I've taught you something that you didn't already know or something like that. That would be really cool. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not already. We are almost at 90 subscribers, which is crazy to me. I need a moment because that's really like insane that we've almost hit 90 subscribers, which means we're really close to 100 subscribers, which is amazing. So I'd really appreciate it if you have not already. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video if you liked it. If you don't like it, that's cool. You don't have to like it. And if you want to, you can leave a little comment down below. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning or evening or night, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.